I never thought a recreational vehicle would turn my peaceful life in Briarwood Heights, Colorado into an all-out war with the most vindictive homeowners association president I had ever met. But here I was, watching steam practically shoot from her ears as she spotted my 30-foot RV in my driveway on a frigid January morning. My name is Vickers, and I had been living in this upscale neighborhood just outside Denver for 3 years without incident. I worked as a software engineer for a tech company downtown, kept my lawn pristine, painted my house the approved shade of beige, and generally stayed out of everyone's business. Life was good, quiet, and exactly how I liked it. That all changed when I bought my dream RV. The purchase happened in late November. I had been planning a cross-country trip for years, saving up money and vacation time to finally explore the national parks out west. The RV was a beauty, a 2024 Winnebago with all the amenities I could want. Solar panels on the roof, a full kitchen, comfortable sleeping quarters, and enough storage for months of travel. I was scheduled to leave in March when the weather improved, and I needed somewhere to keep it during the winter months. Commercial storage facilities in the Denver area charged an arm and a leg, especially for something this size. My property had a large driveway that could easily accommodate both my truck and the RV without blocking the sidewalk or extending into the street. I checked the HOA bylaws carefully before parking it there. The rules stated that recreational vehicles could not be parked on the street or visible from the front of the property for more than 48 hours. My driveway was on the side of my house, partially obscured by a fence and landscaping. Technically, you could see it if you looked, but it was not prominently displayed. I figured I was in the clear. I was wrong. 2 days after I parked the RV in my driveway, I found a letter in my mailbox. The envelope bore the official Briarwood Heights HOA seal, and inside was a violation notice. According to HOA President Patricia Whitmore, my RV was in violation of the community standards, and I had 7 days to remove it or face a fine of $250. I read the letter 3 times, trying to figure out what I had done wrong. The vehicle was not on the street. It was not blocking anything. It was parked neatly on my own property. I pulled out my copy of the HOA bylaws and read through the relevant section again. Nowhere did it say that RVs could not be parked in driveways, only that they could not be stored in view of the street for extended periods as a primary storage solution. That evening, I decided to attend the next HOA board meeting to address the issue in person. The meetings were held monthly in the community center, a small building near the neighborhood entrance that also housed a gym and a pool. I had never attended one before, having no reason to get involved in HOA politics, but this seemed like something that could be resolved with a simple conversation. The meeting was sparsely attended. Besides the 5 board members, only 3 other homeowners were present. Patricia Whitmore sat at the head of the table, a woman in her mid-50s with perfectly styled blonde hair and a pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She had that look that screamed, "Let me speak to your manager," even when she was silent. When the floor opened for homeowner concerns, I raised my hand. Patricia acknowledged me with a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. "Yes, Mr. Vickers, is it?" "That's right," I said, standing up. "I received a violation notice about my RV, and I wanted to clarify the situation. According to the bylaws, vehicles cannot be parked on the street for extended periods. My RV is in my driveway on my property. I do not see how that violates any rules." Patricia's smile vanished. "Mr. Vickers, the spirit of our community standards is to maintain property values and aesthetic appeal. Your enormous vehicle is an eyesore that can be seen from the street. It brings down the tone of the entire neighborhood. With all due respect, Mrs. Whitmore, the bylaws do not mention anything about driveways. If the rule was meant to include private driveways, it should say so explicitly. She leaned forward, her voice taking on a condescending tone. The board has the authority to interpret the rules as needed to preserve the character of Briarwood Heights. We have determined that your vehicle violates community standards. You have 7 days to remove it. I felt my frustration building. Where exactly am I supposed to put it? Storage facilities are expensive, and I am planning to use it for a trip in a few months. It makes no sense to pay hundreds of dollars a month to store something I own when I have a perfectly good driveway. That is not the HOA's concern, Patricia said dismissively. The rules are the rules. If you do not comply, you will be fined. Another board member, an older man named Robert Chen, spoke up. Patricia, maybe we should review the bylaws more carefully. Mr. Vickers has a point about the specific wording. Patricia shot him a look that could have frozen lava. The board has already made its decision. Moving on. I left that meeting angry and determined not to let this go. Over the next week, I researched Colorado HOA laws extensively. I discovered that while HOAs had significant power, they could not enforce rules that were not clearly written in the governing documents. If the bylaws did not explicitly prohibit RV storage in driveways, they would have a hard time making the fine stick. 7 days later, another letter arrived. This one informed me that I was now being fined $250 for failure to comply with the violation notice. I had 30 days to pay the fine or face additional penalties, including a lien on my property. That was when I decided to lawyer up. I contacted an attorney named Marcus Hernandez, who specialized in HOA disputes. After reviewing my case and the bylaws, he agreed that the HOA was overreaching. They are trying to bully you into compliance, Marcus said during our consultation. The bylaws clearly refer to street parking, not private driveways. We can fight this, but it is going to cost you time and money. Are you prepared for that? I thought about it for about 5 seconds. Absolutely. This is about principle now. Marcus sent a formal letter to the HOA board, explaining why the fine was invalid and demanding that it be rescinded. The response came 2 weeks later, not from the board but from their attorney. The HOA was doubling down, claiming that their interpretation was correct, and that I now owed $500, as the fine had doubled for continued non-compliance. January rolled into February, and Colorado got hit with a massive winter storm. Snow fell for 3 days straight, dumping nearly 2 feet on the Denver metro area. The city's snowplows worked overtime, but in our private neighborhood, snow removal was the HOA's responsibility. Here is where things got interesting. Briarwood Heights had 2 entrances, but only one of them was ever plowed during the winter. The main entrance on Oakmont Drive was cleared regularly, while the secondary entrance on Maple Ridge Road was left buried under snow from November through March. This was supposedly a cost-saving measure, though the HOA collected hefty monthly fees from all 200 homes in the community. Everyone used the Oakmont Drive entrance during winter. It was the only way in or out unless you wanted to shovel through several feet of snow yourself. After the storm, I received yet another letter from Patricia. This one informed me that my fine had now increased to $1,000 due to continued non-compliance, and if I did not remove the RV within 72 hours, the HOA would have it towed at my expense. I was done playing nice. Marcus advised me that they could not legally tow my vehicle from my private property without a court order, which they would not get given the circumstances. but the harassment was taking its toll. Every day, I came home to find new violation notices in my mailbox for increasingly ridiculous things. My trash can was supposedly visible from the street for 30 minutes after collection. My mailbox post needed repainting. My front door wreath was not in keeping with community standards because it was the wrong shade of green. Patricia was making my life miserable, and I knew it was because I had dared to challenge her authority. Then inspiration struck. It was a Saturday morning in mid-February when I woke up to find yet another letter from the HOA, this one threatening legal action. I walked outside to check on the RV, which I had been maintaining and winterizing properly, and noticed the massive piles of snow on either side of the main entrance. The plow had created these giant berms, leaving only a single lane for traffic to pass through. I looked at my RV. I looked at the entrance, and I smiled. If they wanted to play hardball about where I could park my property on my own land, I would show them what a real parking violation looked like. I spent the next hour preparing the RV for a move. The engine turned over smoothly despite the cold, and I let it warm up while I plotted my route. The main entrance was about a quarter-mile from my house, and the roads within the neighborhood had been plowed well enough for me to drive safely. At exactly 9 in the morning, I drove my RV to the Oakmont Drive entrance and parked it perpendicular across the plowed lane, completely blocking the only accessible entrance to the neighborhood. Then I locked it, pocketed the keys, and walked back home. My phone started ringing within 15 minutes. I ignored the first 3 calls from unknown numbers, assuming they were from angry neighbors who could not get in or out. The 4th call was from Patricia herself. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was exactly what I expected. "Mr. Vickers, this is Patricia Whitmore with the HOA board. Your vehicle is blocking the main entrance and creating a hazard. Remove it immediately or I will call the police and have it towed." I smiled and deleted the message. The 5th call was from a different board member, Susan Martinez. Her message was more pleading than threatening. "Mr. Vickers, please, we have people who need to get to work. This is dangerous. Can we please talk about this?" Now we were getting somewhere. I waited another hour, watching from my window as the chaos unfolded. Cars were backed up on Oakmont Drive outside the neighborhood. People were trying to walk through the snow berms to get to their vehicles. One man was attempting to climb over my RV to reach the other side, though he gave up after realizing how tall it was. My phone buzzed with texts from neighbors I had not heard from in years. Most were angry, demanding I move the vehicle. A few were confused, asking what was going on. One, surprisingly, was supportive. The text came from Tom Reeves, who lived 3 houses down. "Heard about your fight with Patricia. About time someone stood up to her. Good luck, man." At around 11, I saw 2 police cars pull up outside the entrance. Officers got out and examined the RV, then started talking to the crowd that had gathered. One of them tried the door and found it locked. They walked around it, took some photos, and then one of them pulled out a phone. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Denver Metro Police. "Mr. Vickers?" a professional voice asked when I answered, speaking. "This is Officer James Caldwell with the Denver Metro Police. We are at the entrance to your neighborhood regarding a recreational vehicle that is blocking access. Is this your vehicle?" "It is," I confirmed. "Sir, can you come down here and move it? It is creating a significant obstruction." "I would be happy to, officer, but I need to speak with someone from the HOA board first. I have been having a dispute with them, and I am using this as leverage to get them to the negotiating table." There was a pause. "Sir, blocking a road is not an appropriate way to resolve a civil dispute. I need you to move the vehicle now, or I will have to cite you for obstruction." "Is Oakmont Drive a public street or a private road?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Another pause, longer this time. "It is a private road maintained by the HOA." "Then this is a civil matter between me and the HOA. I am not blocking a public thoroughfare. If the HOA wants me to move my vehicle, they can agree to drop the bogus fines and stop harassing me about parking it in my own driveway." "Mr. Vickers, officer, I understand you are just doing your job, but unless you plan to arrest me for something, I am going to let the HOA figure this out. Have a good day." I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding. I was not sure if I had just made a huge mistake, but I was committed now. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Patricia Whitmore standing on my porch, her face red with rage. Officer Caldwell stood behind her, looking uncomfortable. I opened the door but left the security chain in place. "Can I help you? You can move your vehicle right now," Patricia shrieked. "This is outrageous. People cannot get to work. Emergency vehicles cannot get through. You are endangering the entire community." "That is interesting," I said calmly. "Tell me, Mrs. Whitmore, why does the neighborhood only have one usable entrance in winter? If emergency access is such a concern, should not both entrances be plowed?" "That is completely irrelevant." "Is it?" "Because if you had maintained both entrances like you are supposed to, this would not be a problem. People could use the Maple Ridge entrance." Officer Caldwell stepped forward. "Mr. Vickers, Mrs. Whitmore has a point about emergency access. What if there is a fire or a medical emergency? Then emergency vehicles can enter through Maple Ridge Road. The HOA has a plow truck. They can clear it in about 20 minutes if they actually do their job." Patricia's eyes were bulging now. "We are not plowing that entrance just because you are throwing a tantrum." "Then I guess we are at an impasse," I said. "My RV stays put until you drop all the fines against me and agree in writing that I can park it in my driveway without harassment." "I will sue you," she screamed. "Go ahead. My attorney is Marcus Hernandez. You can have your lawyer contact him." I closed the door, leaving Patricia sputtering on my porch. The standoff continued for the rest of the day. The police left after determining that they could not force me to move the vehicle without a court order. The HOA called a tow company, but the driver refused to tow the RV once he learned it was a civil dispute and that I had not given permission. By evening, Patricia had no choice but to order the plow truck to clear the Maple Ridge entrance. I watched from my window as the truck rumbled past, heading toward the other side of the neighborhood. It took about an hour to clear enough snow for cars to pass through safely. As soon as the alternative entrance was open, dozens of cars started flowing through. The backed-up traffic from Oakmont Drive rerouted, and the immediate crisis was resolved. But my RV stayed right where it was. That night, I received an email from Susan Martinez, the board member who had called earlier. She asked if I would be willing to attend an emergency board meeting the next morning to discuss a resolution. I agreed, on the condition that my attorney could be present and that everything would be on the record. The meeting was tense. All 5 board members sat on one side of the table, with Patricia in the middle glaring daggers at me. Marcus and I sat across from them. A professional mediator had been brought in, a woman named Linda Cho who specialized in HOA disputes. Linda started the meeting by outlining the situation. "Gentlemen, ladies, we are here to resolve the conflict between Mr. Vickers and the HOA board regarding RV parking and the subsequent fines. Mr. Vickers, can you explain your position?" I laid it out clearly. "I bought an RV for personal use and parked it in my driveway, which is on my private property. The HOA bylaws do not prohibit this, but Mrs. Whitmore issued a violation notice anyway. When I challenged it, the fines kept increasing, and the HOA began harassing me with additional violation notices for trivial matters. I blocked the entrance yesterday to force the board to negotiate in good faith. Patricia could not contain herself. He endangered the entire community. What if someone had died because emergency vehicles could not get through? Marcus jumped in. Mrs. Whitmore, let us be clear about who created the actual safety hazard here. The HOA collects substantial fees from homeowners, but only maintains one entrance during winter. That is the real emergency access issue. My client simply highlighted that problem. Robert Chen, the board member who had spoken up at the first meeting, cleared his throat. Patricia, I have been reviewing the bylaws and I have to agree with Mr. Vickers. The language is specific to street parking. We may have overstepped here. Whose side are you on? Patricia snapped. I am on the side of following our own rules, Robert replied evenly. Linda intervened. Let us focus on solutions. Mr. Vickers, what would it take for you to move your vehicle and consider this matter resolved? First, all fines against me are dropped and expunged from my record. Second, I receive written confirmation that I can park my RV in my driveway without interference, as the bylaws do not prohibit it. Third, the HOA agrees to maintain both entrances during winter for safety reasons. And fourth, there is no retaliation against me for this incident. Patricia laughed bitterly. Absolutely not. You do not get to hold the neighborhood hostage and then make demands. Marcus slid a document across the table. Then you can deal with this lawsuit. My client is prepared to sue for harassment, violation of Colorado HOA statutes, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We will also be filing a complaint with the state regarding the HOA's failure to maintain proper emergency access. That investigation alone will cost you tens of thousands in legal fees. The room went silent. The other board members exchanged glances. Susan Martinez was the first to speak. Patricia, maybe we should consider this. The legal costs could be enormous, and honestly, I think we made a mistake with the initial violation notice. Another board member, David Park, nodded. I agree. This has gotten way out of hand. Let us just resolve it and move on. Patricia looked like she wanted to explode, but she was outnumbered. After 20 minutes of heated discussion among the board members, Linda drafted an agreement. The HOA would drop all fines, confirm my right to park in my driveway, commit to plowing both entrances going forward, and include a non-retaliation clause. In exchange, I would move the RV immediately and agree not to pursue legal action. I signed it. So did all 5 board members, though Patricia's signature looked like an angry scribble. As I stood to leave, Patricia could not resist one final jab. You think you have won, but you have made an enemy today, Mr. Vickers. Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. Mrs. Whitmore, that statement could be interpreted as a violation of the non-retaliation agreement you just signed. I would advise you to be very careful going forward. Her mouth snapped shut. I walked out of that meeting feeling vindicated but also exhausted. The whole ordeal had taken weeks of my life and cost me thousands in legal fees. But it was worth it to stand up to a bully who thought she could push people around just because she had a title. The next morning, I drove my RV back to my driveway and parked it exactly where it had been before. A few neighbors waved as I passed. Tom Reeves gave me a thumbs up from his yard. For a couple of weeks, everything seemed settled. The RV sat in my driveway without issue. Both neighborhood entrances remained plowed. Patricia still glared at me whenever our paths crossed, but she kept her distance. Then things took a darker turn. It started small. My mailbox was knocked over one night, the post snapped clean off. I assumed it was vandalism, maybe teenagers causing trouble. I replaced it and thought nothing more of it. A week later, I came home to find my front tire slashed. Then my garbage cans were dumped across my lawn. Someone's spray painted a crude insult on my fence. Each incident was minor on its own, but together they formed a clear pattern of harassment. I installed security cameras around my property, high-definition models that recorded day and night. 2 days later, they caught something interesting. At around 2 in the morning, a silver BMW pulled up to my house. A figure in dark clothing got out, walked up to my yard, and dumped a bag of garbage across my driveway. The cameras caught everything, including the moment when the person looked up, and I saw their face clearly in the infrared lighting. It was not Patricia. It was her daughter, Kimberly Whitmore, a woman in her late 20s who lived with her mother in one of the larger homes near the community center. I saved the footage and called Marcus the next morning. "This is a criminal matter now," he said after watching the video. "You need to file a police report." I went to the police station that afternoon and showed them the footage. The officer who took my report was thorough, making copies of all the videos and taking detailed notes about each incident. "We will send someone to talk to Miss Whitmore," he said. "This is clearly vandalism and harassment. Depending on what she says, we may file charges." 2 days later, 2 officers showed up at the Whitmore residence. I did not witness the conversation, but I heard about it later from Tom Reeves, who had become something of a neighborhood gossip hub during this whole mess. Apparently, Kimberly admitted to everything immediately. She broke down crying and said her mother had been so upset about the RV situation that it was affecting her health. Kimberly thought that if she made my life difficult enough, I would move out of the neighborhood and her mother could relax. The police gave her a citation for criminal mischief and told her that I could press charges if I wanted to. They also had a conversation with Patricia about conspiracy to commit vandalism, though there was no evidence she had directed her daughter's actions. I thought long and hard about whether to press charges. Kimberly was clearly misguided, and I did not want to ruin her life over some garbage on my lawn, but I also could not just let it go without consequences. Marcus helped me draft a settlement agreement. Kimberly would pay for all damages to my property, complete 20 hours of community service, and stay at least 100 feet away from my home at all times. In exchange, I would not press criminal charges. She agreed immediately. But here is where the story takes its final turn, because Patricia Whitmore was not done yet. In March, as I was preparing for my long-awaited RV trip, I received a certified letter from the HOA. This one was not from Patricia, but from Robert Chen, who had apparently staged something of a bored coup in the weeks following our confrontation. The letter informed me that an investigation had been launched into HOA finances after several homeowners raised concerns about how dues were being spent. The investigation revealed that Patricia had been embezzling money from the HOA accounts for over 3 years. It was not a small amount. She had stolen nearly $80,000, using it to fund her lifestyle while claiming the HOA could not afford to plow both entrances or maintain common areas properly. The money had gone toward luxury vacations, expensive dinners, and even a new car for Kimberly. Robert and the other board members had voted to remove Patricia as president and had turned over all evidence to the police. She was arrested 2 days later and charged with theft, embezzlement, and fraud. The neighborhood was in shock. Patricia had always presented herself as the guardian of Briarwood Heights, the person keeping property values high and standards intact. Instead, She had been stealing from the very people she was supposed to serve. The trial happened quickly. With the financial evidence overwhelming and multiple witnesses willing to testify, Patricia took a plea deal. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison, ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA, and banned from serving on any homeowners association board for life. Kimberly moved out of the neighborhood shortly after, too embarrassed to face everyone who knew what her mother had done. As for me, I finally took my RV trip in April. I spent 3 glorious months exploring Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, Zion, and dozens of other places I had always dreamed of seeing. I posted photos to social media occasionally, and several of my Briarwood Heights neighbors commented with encouragement and envy. When I returned in July, the neighborhood felt different. Robert Chen was now the HOA president, and he ran things with a much lighter touch than Patricia ever had. Both entrances were maintained year-round. Violation notices were only issued for genuine problems, not petty grievances. People actually seemed happy to live there again. Tom Reeves threw a welcome home barbecue for me, and nearly 30 neighbors showed up. We grilled burgers, shared stories, and laughed about the whole insane situation. Several people thanked me for standing up to Patricia, saying they had been too afraid of retaliation to challenge her themselves. "You did us all a favor," Susan Martinez told me as the evening wound down. "That woman was a tyrant. We should have dealt with her years ago." I parked my RV in the driveway that night, right where it belonged. No violation notice appeared. No one complained. It just sat there peacefully, waiting for the next adventure. The legal fees had been expensive and the stress had taken years off my life, but in the end it was worth it. Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when it costs you. Sometimes you have to block an entrance to make people see reason. And sometimes, standing your ground reveals corruption that needed to be exposed anyway. My RV is still in my driveway today. The new HOA board even amended the bylaws to explicitly allow RV parking on private property, just to make sure there could never be another dispute like mine. Patricia is serving her time in a minimum security facility somewhere, and I hope she is learning that stealing from your neighbors and abusing authority has real consequences. As for Kimberly, I heard she moved to California and started over. I hope she learned from her mother's mistakes. I hope she understood that blindly supporting someone, even family, is wrong when that person is hurting others. The Briarwood Heights community is thriving now. Property values actually went up after Patricia's removal, probably because potential buyers heard that the HOA was no longer run by a corrupt dictator. New families have moved in, and there is a genuine sense of neighborhood spirit that was missing before. I still work as a software engineer, still keep my lawn nice, still stay out of most people's business. But now when I come home and see that RV in my driveway, I smile. It is not just a vehicle anymore. It is a symbol of standing up for yourself, of refusing to be pushed around, of demanding that rules be applied fairly and honestly. And every winter, when the snow falls and both entrances to Briarwood Heights are plowed clean, I remember that cold February morning when I blocked that entrance and changed everything. It was the most satisfying act of rebellion I have ever committed, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. Life is too short to let petty tyrants control you. Whether it is an HOA president, a boss, or anyone else who thinks their position gives them the right to abuse others, sometimes you have to take a stand. Sometimes you have to park your RV exactly where it does not belong to make them understand that you will not be intimidated. The settlement agreement I signed is framed on my wall now, right next to photos from my RV trip. It is a reminder that justice sometimes requires creative solutions. It is a reminder that communities are stronger when they hold leaders accountable. And it is a reminder that even the smallest acts of resistance can expose the biggest corruption. I occasionally run into Robert Chen at the mailboxes or the community center. He always greets me warmly and jokes that I should run for the board. I always decline. I have no interest in HOA politics, but I appreciate that he asks, and I appreciate even more that he learned from Patricia's mistakes. The cameras I installed around my property are still up and running. I have not needed them to catch any more vandalism, but they give me peace of mind. They also captured some pretty funny moments, like the time a family of raccoons decided to have a party in my recycling bin, or when Tom's dog escaped and spent 20 minutes digging holes in various yards before Tom caught him. My lawyer Marcus Hernandez still sends me holiday cards. He included a note in last year's card thanking me for the referral business. Apparently, my case inspired 3 other Briarwood Heights residents to challenge bogus HOA fines, and he represented all of them successfully. The new board under Robert's leadership settled all 3 cases quickly and fairly, learning that fighting homeowners over petty rules was expensive and pointless. I think about Patricia sometimes, wondering what drove her to embezzle all that money. Was it greed? Was it some twisted sense of entitlement? Or did the power just corrupt her gradually until she convinced herself that she deserved it? I will never know, and honestly, I do not need to. Her motivations do not matter. Her actions and their consequences speak for themselves. The restitution payments are being made slowly. The HOA is getting back about $1,000 a month from Patricia's seized assets and garnished wages. It will take years to recover everything, but at least the money is going back where it belongs, into maintaining the community properly. As I write this, my RV is being prepped for another trip. This time I am heading east, planning to explore the national parks in Utah and then swing through Colorado's western slope. I have 3 weeks of vacation saved up, and I intend to use every single day of it. The RV will sit in my driveway when I am not using it, visible from the street, parked on my private property, exactly where it is allowed to be. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with the HOA board, who will promptly tell them to read the bylaws and mind their own business. This whole experience taught me valuable lessons about standing up for yourself, about the importance of clear rules and fair enforcement, and about how quickly corruption can take root when no one is paying attention. It taught me that sometimes the most effective protest is the simplest one, that leverage matters, and that you should never underestimate the power of actually reading the bylaws. It also taught me something about community. Before this happened, I barely knew my neighbors. Now I have genuine friendships with people on my street. We look out for each other. We attend board meetings to stay informed. We hold our leaders accountable. That is what a real community should be. So here I sit, in my home in Briarwood Heights, Colorado, with my RV in the driveway and my conscience clear. The woman who tried to bully me is in prison. Her daughter learned a hard lesson about blind loyalty. My neighbors are free from a corrupt tyrant, and I got to take the trip of a lifetime. Not a bad outcome for a dispute that started over parking. Sometimes I drive past that entrance on Oakmont Drive, the one I blocked for an entire day, and I remember how it felt to take that stand. The fear of what might happen, the anger at being pushed too far, the satisfaction of watching the board members realize they had no choice but to negotiate. It was terrifying and exhilarating and absolutely necessary. Would I recommend this approach to others? That depends. Every situation is different. Every HOA is different. But if you find yourself being bullied by an organization that is supposed to serve you, If you have exhausted reasonable options and the harassment continues, then yes, sometimes you need to get creative. Sometimes you need to make them feel the consequences of their own policies. Sometimes you need to block the entrance. Just make sure you know your bylaws, have a good lawyer, and are prepared for the fight of your life. Because people with power do not give it up easily, and they will make you pay for challenging them if they can. But if you are right, if the rules are on your side, if you are willing to stand firm no matter what they throw at you, then you can win. You can change things. You can protect not just yourself, but everyone else who was too afraid to speak up. That is what I did, and I would do it all over again. The sun is setting now, casting orange light across my yard and glinting off the RV's windshield. Tomorrow, I will load up my supplies and hit the road. Tomorrow, I will leave Briarwood Heights in my rearview mirror for a few weeks and remember why I bought this vehicle in the first place: to explore, to be free, to go wherever I want without asking permission. And when I come back, my RV will return to its spot in my driveway where it belongs, where it has always belonged, where no HOA president will ever tell me it cannot be again. That is freedom. That is justice. That is what happens when you stand your ground and refuse to back down. My name is Graham Vickers, and I blocked my HOA's entrance with my RV. Best decision I ever made.